Yeah, right. We are starting.
Live! Okay, researchers are running studies that can help you sell your products better, but you don't have time to read hundreds of academic peer-reviewed papers, and that's why we created Selling with Science, the weekly 20-minute science top-up that will put you ahead. I am Nikki Elbaz.
Hey, I'm Sophia Dagden, and today we're going to talk about the way we make decisions, so kind of the art and the science of it. And mostly we're going to talk about two people who we just can't not mention when it comes to decision making. They're Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. So yeah, I'm super excited about this. I love those dudes.
So much so that she bought me this wonderful book. You should read it. I'm still getting through it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It tells you their entire backstory and their working relationship and how they became like pretty much the world's best psychologists. Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in Economics, and the only reason Tversky didn't is because he had sadly passed away by then, and it's not awarded posthumously.
Yeah, such a shame because he did so much for the field. But yeah, I love the way the book, by the way, in case you didn't catch it, is The Undoing Project. But I love how it's the backstory, so it has like the human interest, as well as the actual studies and you know, the like digging into like the science of it. So it's really fun. Highly recommended by both of us because Sophia bought it for me.
Yeah, I found it by accident. You know, there's this library app that lets you like borrow. That's the one. That's the word. Borrow ebooks from the library, and I was just like, that looks interesting. Let's read about it. And I was like, oh my god, these guys are amazing. How did I not know about this? And this is why we're here now.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so I think to introduce the main theory that they had, for those of you who haven't read or heard about them, basically, Kahneman and Tversky decided that the way we make decisions kind of works in two ways. And to make it easier to talk about it, Kahneman uses the term System 1 and System 2. So there's basically kind of two of you that live inside you, and they fight for decision-making powers. So System 1 is the intuitive version of you. It's basically like the little kid that just makes very quick decisions, like immediate. System 2 is the logical part of you, the part that really thinks through problems and solves them and uses data and things. And a lot of marketing targets that system. However, the way Kahneman describes it is, so let's imagine this is like a superhero movie. System 2 is the sidekick who thinks they're the hero. So they think they're in charge and they're making all the decisions and this is all about them. System 1 is the actual hero, the person who like makes 90% of your decisions, but just kind of sits in the background and eats cake. And so we thought we'd talk about how marketers can target these two systems and to basically sell our products better. Now, Hannah, what do you think?
I actually want to go back to what you said about the art and science of decision making, because I think there is a cool balance between those two aspects, that it's not just about making people feel good about the decision. It's also using the science and the persuasion things that really actually get to us. Like, you know, we think we're smarter than persuasion tricks, but we're not. So it's definitely an art, but it's also a science, and I think that's cool how there's that balance there that you have to strike. Yeah. Remind me what your question was.
I suppose it's just like I find that when you head to a website and say like the Zoom website, because I was looking at it yesterday, and everything on it is about like how logically awesome Zoom is, and they do use some cool triggers, but it's very much about their products and their features, and it's meant to appeal to like your logic a little bit, but your logic isn't really like as powerful as we think it is. It's mostly the justification of your decision making. Like one thing that they mentioned that I thought was really, really cool and mind-blowing is that, so you read a lot of data and you're trying to make a decision. Say the example they used was this guy was an investment banker and he wanted to buy stock. And so he decided to buy Ford stock. I think you talked about this in a post as well. And so, you know, he went through data, he went through all the things. He was like, yeah, buying Ford stock because the cars are good and everything else is good. But it turns out that at the time, the stock wasn't in any way underpriced. It was, in fact, a little bit overpriced. And it didn't feel like a particularly, sensible time to buy the stock. And when they dug in, they found out that he just really liked the cars. And so he was using the logic part of him to actually answer a much simpler question, which was, do I like this stock? And this is why he ended up buying it. Not because it was a good price, or it was going to bring him a good dividend. No, I like the cars, so I got it.
And that's where I think click triggers, which are like little copy that you'll put next to a button on a page, they really come into play because you can have this really emotional button, like, yeah, take me out of my parenting misery, let's say for a parenting course. But then you have a click trigger that has a lot of logical information in there, like, money back guarantee, or, proven process by blah, 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 where you can kind of let them justify their decision with logic so they feel good about it, but still allow them to experience the emotion of the decision process. I think it's like a cool, nice balance where you can play to the emotion, but also play to the logic, help them feel good about it, help them get past that logical side. Because they know when we make decisions, we know that our brain is going to say like, okay, so why did you do that? What's the logic? Because we will rationalize it. So we kind of do need that rational buy-in, even while we're making the decision on emotion. So system, I always mix them up. System 2 will say, hey, system 1, why did you do that?
Because cake.
Cake, yeah. It's always about cake or cookies.
Yeah, so I thought it would actually be interesting to bring up one of the experiments they run and kind of read through it and see how it applies. So it's the Linda experiment. You remember from the book?
No.
Okay, right. So I'm going to read you guys a very short excerpt about somebody called Linda. And then I'm going to ask you a question about her. And this is to kind of show just how our two systems work. I thought it was really cool. Okay, so Linda is a 31-year-old, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Now, this was written in the 80s, so hence the anti-nuclear demonstrations. So this is all you know about Linda. Now, which alternative is more probable? That Linda is a bank teller, or that Linda is a bank teller and is active in the feminist movement?
I do remember this one now. Okay.
So what was your gut reaction the first time you read it?
Obviously number 2.
Right? So the reason we're bringing up the Linda experiment is that they were trying to prove that actually, Tversky started off with the theory that we are very good at statistics and that people would always pick the logical thing. And this was very big in the 70s. We used to think that the brain was very logical, that we were amazing at picking the good options. So when somebody was presented with the right reasons and the right statistics, they were going to make the good choice. Kahneman thought that was a load of rubbish and actually ended up calling Tversky out in a lecture he was giving on this. And this is how they started working together. And with this experiment, they found that about 85% of students, and those were students from Princeton and Stanford and the big top Ivy League colleges, thought that it was more probable that Linda was a bank teller and a feminist rather than she was just a bank teller. Even though, if we think about it logically, the pool of bank tellers is obviously larger statistically than the pool of bank tellers who also happen to be feminists. And it shows you this is where your system 1 kicks in, where the things you heard about Linda play in your back and you're driven towards a decision, even though it is not in fact the sensible outcome or the probable outcome.
And the crazy thing is that I still have a hard time believing it. It's like, no, but she really is a bank teller who happens to be part of that movement. It's like, okay, so she's in that small pool. It's possible. It's really possible. It's so our system 1 is so strong that we, even when we're presented with the facts and even when we read this book and we see straight up how it doesn't logically make sense, I still have such a hard time. Like, yeah, okay, that's logic. Yep.
Oh yeah, and students got really emotional about it. Like, because Kahneman got a bit annoyed after he'd presented this a bunch of times. He was like, guys, how are you not picking this up? And one girl like started shouting. I was like, you asked me for my opinion, you know? You didn't ask me for statistics. It was my opinion. This is my opinion. She's clearly a feminist and a bank teller. And it does, because our intuition and the way we interpret the world feels very, correct and personal, because System 1 is designed to make you think that it's right the whole time. It's the part of you that creates a very consistent picture of your world. Otherwise, the world gets really complicated and sad. So.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if they presented it this way or if I'm just mixing this up with The Influence by Cialdini, where he talks about, I know for sure he talks about it, but I think they talk about it too, how these systems that we have in our brains, they're there to protect us because we have to make so many decisions throughout our day that it would be crippling if we had to make logical decisions all the time for everything, all the little tiny minutia of decisions that we have to make all day long. It's just that when we do it naturally and we don't give thought to it, when we, are hijacked by taking it easy and like being lazy, he calls it, that's when things get corrupted. So these things are good for us. We just have to kind of be on alert as buyers, but then kind of make sure that our consumers are not noticing so that we could, get them on our side. And this is not sleazy because we have good products, and ultimately it's just that the buying decision is something that's full of friction. And if we are serving the population well, then it's in their best interest to buy because we are helping solve their problems. But we do have to get them through that friction moment of like, okay, take my money.
Yeah, and you're spot on about the fact that we like that system is lazy because it uses a lot of brain power. And so your system 2 depletes throughout the day, like your ability to make really good, sensible decisions when you're tired. I mean, everybody's experienced this. It has about the same effect if you've had a couple of drinks. Like your decision making just isn't very spot on. And that's when System 1 is then completely in the driver's seat and trying to do everything for you. But I think, again, this is where the UX and UI side comes. Because the simpler you make that experience and the smoother you make it, the more relaxed the brain gets, because it doesn't need to make extraneous decisions. Like, when you land on a really good website and you just know intuitively where everything is, and it feels great. And you start feeling really good about the brand because they're basically taking the workload off your brain. They're saying, look, you can relax. This is easy. We've made it nice for you. Like, go down this funnel. You'd love what you see. So then that's where the System 1 stuff comes in. It's really integrating that smooth experience.
What's interesting? You just clicked something. When I fill out credit card information, my billing address is in New Jersey. And when I'm typing everything out, my name, everything, and I know I should use Google Auto Forms and all that, but I don't. And then I get to the state. So I fill it out, I'm typing, and then I get to the state line, and it's a different action. I have to go with my mouse and get New Jersey because there's all these other new states. Or I have to type in new and then go with the mouse because it doesn't just do new because there's New Hampshire on top. So it kind of is that shift of, okay, I need to now think, is this something I want to be doing? I want to make this purchase. It's like that shift in just that smooth, fill it out, do it. So that's just something that clicked. I don't like drop down menus for my state lines.
No, it's really annoying that you can't just start typing in the first letters and actually and get the thing.
Yep.
But yes, I suppose we're getting to the 5 minutes of what the actionable learning of this fun stuff is. So what was the biggest takeaway for you, for marketers, when you first kind of read about the two systems?
Definitely the biggest, because it's so fundamental and huge, is that, we buy on emotion and we justify with logic. And, I've heard that before, but it really came, it was very clear once I read the book or halfway through the book, that it's not a choice. It's not some people do it and smarter people do it, or don't do it. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can, and it depends what kind of purchase, and B2B, B2C. It's like, no, this is how it is. This is how it is. And knowing that is very empowering, because, then you help provide that emotional comfort with the decision-making process, but also help make it that it's a logical choice, by making it something that's, good, and risk reversals and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I suppose that was far more of a revelation for me than I would like to admit, because I did come from the kind of the school of thought where I assumed that a lot of actions were driven by logical reasons, and almost kind of like a checklist step by step that you took down, until I kind of realized that logic isn't really as powerful in the brain as we think it is. And it really is about how the person is feeling whenever they're making that decision. So even when they first find out about you, and then when they come back and you build that relationship, it really comes down to the way they feel about you rather than how good your stuff are. And that was like it doesn't sound like a big shift, but it was a huge kind of revelation for me.
What's interesting about that is, like, there's a part of me that's rebelling against this also, because I did branding for a while, and once I started learning about conversion copy and how effective conversion copy is, I kind of rallied against branding and creative copy. And there's still this sort of dichotomy in me that's like, oh, but branding is so important and nurturing, and it's so beautiful and fun and lovely. And then the other side of me that's like, well, what about sales? Like, can you really measure ROI on a print ad? Like, you can't. Or even the focus groups that they run beforehand and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's so much fluffier. So it frustrates me. But there is something to be said about branding. And that, like, I don't know, thinking about Apple and the way they package their products, and, like, the whole unboxing process of an Apple product. There definitely is that, that factor of people need to feel comfortable buying from you, in addition to, you putting all the pieces in place so that they can feel emotionally comfortable with the logical side of things, if that makes any sense.
See, I actually have a completely different take on it. I think the emotional side is an essential part of conversion. I think you need to, I think you need to make them. Actually, I rebel against the creative copy as well. I think it should come from customer research and from basically a conversion perspective, and that should inform your design and your branding and all that stuff. Like, they're not created by designers sitting in a room going, oh, this is pretty, because then that's not really conversion focused. But I think all those soft emotions have to come into conversion, because that's how we make buying decisions. I mean, I spent 10 grand on a mastermind last year because I liked the person that run it. Not because of, like, there were obviously logical reasons in my head, but the main reason was, like, I like this person, I want to learn from them, they're awesome. Like, it was that made me buy.
Yeah. No, I guess, like, there's still this part of me that's believing, and I know we're almost at time, that, like, the big brands can get away with these more aspirational, just purely nurturing stuff, because, like, emotion, it's so beautiful. So yeah, definitely conversion definitely needs emotion. But more that question of, like, nurturing without any call to action. What's the play with that? That's just something that I've been thinking about a lot.
I think that's useless, personally. But it probably has, like, I'm probably wrong, it probably has a reason. I'm like, you can't sell it. What's the point?
Hey, the Super Bowl ads love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but, like, unless it's like the Budweiser ads with the puppies from a few years ago. Like, those actually made me consider buying Buds. I was like, but you have puppies and it made me cry. I would buy your beer.
Yeah, that's an interesting discussion that we'll have to save for a different time, I guess. Because next week, what are we talking about?
That's a good question.
Let's see. Oh, we are talking about action and motivation. How can you motivate your customers? Good question, huh?
Good question. Awesome. I will see you guys next week, and thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.